Welcome back. This is John Cookson in London with the Rise News as look at the news events that shaped our world in 2023. The second half of the year was dominated by conflict in the Middle East, but first, another coup in West Africa. Ali Bongo had been announced as the winner of Gabon's presidential election, giving him a third term in office. The Bongo family had ruled the country for 55 years already and was branded a dynastic power by the opposition, but then this.
Au nom du peuple gabonais et garant de la protection des institutions.
Military leaders declared a coup on national TV, a colonel declaring, "In the name of the people of Gabon, we have decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime. The general elections and the results are cancelled," he said. The borders are closed until further notice. Bongo was placed under house arrest, but he managed a message.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family.
General Brice Oligui, head of the Presidential Guard of the ousted president, was carried in triumph by hundreds of soldiers a few hours after the coup. A week after the military takeover, the deposed president was released from house arrest and was told he was free to leave the country. Tinder-dry conditions and high winds were responsible for devastating fires which swept across the Hawaiian island of Maui, killing at least 100 people. The tourist town of Lahaina was one of the worst hit. Survivor Annalise Cochran was among hundreds who jumped into the sea to escape the flames.
By about 11 o'clock, we saw a Coast Guard boat in the water that was picking people up that had drifted out because some people didn't stay on the rocks with us. Some people chose to go out into the water, which I can't imagine how cold it was. I know we were experiencing a lot of pain from the cold after just a couple of hours, and they had been there even longer.
The scale of the disaster seen from the air was truly shocking, and the remains of some victims will never be found. Maui is open to tourism again, but the loss of life can never be replaced. And climate change played a role in one of Africa's worst disasters in modern times. A flash flood devastated the Libyan coastal city of Derna. The enormous deluge, fueled by torrential rains, broke through 2 upstream dams and sent a late-night tidal wave crashing down a dry riverbed into the city of 100,000 people.
الموت يحيط بدرنا من هنا وهناك. كل ليلة تنقضي ينام فيها أهالي المدينة.
Libyan state TV showed scenes of utter devastation. Homes, buildings collapsed. Hundreds of victims were swept out to sea and never recovered. Libya's Red Crescent estimated 11,000 dead, with a further 8,000 missing. This man says, "The water level was so high it made an 8-story building disappear. It's unreal," he said. "I've lost friends and relatives. May God help us." And panic in the streets of Marrakesh as a deadly quake hit western Morocco in early September. It was the country's deadliest tremor in decades and claimed at least 3,000 lives. The earthquake's epicenter was high in the Atlas Mountains, from where I reported for Arise News at the village of Tufkat. The road to the Atlas Mountains is deceptively beautiful, so the shock of what lies beyond after last Friday's earthquake is even more profound. On this steep track, rescuers are hauling an excavator around impossible bends. Inevitably, it gets stuck. I'm on the road to a stricken village, but as you can see, the excavator is having to dig its way up the mountain pass to try to get to the stricken village. Conditions here are absolutely horrendous. Driver Chafik and I eventually reached the village of Tufkat. The mud brick houses here were no match for the cataclysm which struck this region. Whole families still remain buried in the ruins. These were once people's precious homes, their entire life. Their family, people born in these houses, died in these houses in normal times, all disappeared, gone, lost forever. Some medical help is getting through, but it looks more like first aid than any serious treatment. And government-sponsored food deliveries have started for families spending their days and nights outdoors. It's basic, but it stops them from starving. But make no mistake, these mountain people are tough. This mother on her way to another village with much-needed blankets for the cold night ahead. You've lost family members, haven't you?
Yeah. I'm lost my sister and her sons and my sister. His sons is dead, and also all the area is going. Is dead.
A son and his family watch as the digger we saw earlier swings into action. His parents are dead, he knows that, but at last he can give them a decent burial once they've been retrieved from the ruins. As I watch them dig for yet more bodies, what do I learn from this difficult trip? Well, first of all, the resilience of the Moroccan people, their spirit, despite what's happened, is absolutely incredible. And also the enormity, the scale of this catastrophic event that struck this region. How is the government, how is the rest of the world that's offered to help, how are they going to assist? Because the need here by the living, forget the dead, nothing can help them. The need of the living is absolutely profound because Morocco's pain is really severe. John Cookson at Rise News at Toufkat in Morocco. For the first 234 years of America's history, no US president or former president had ever been indicted. That changed in 2023, when former President Donald Trump was charged in 4 separate criminal cases. In New York, 34 felony counts in connection with hush money payments to a porn star. In Florida, 40 felony counts for hoarding classified documents. In Washington, D.C., 4 felony counts for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And in Georgia, 13 felony counts for his election interference. Trump blasted the federal indictments as a sham.
The fake charges put forth by the Biden sham, we call it a sham indictment, and the man that's doing it, I really believe he's mentally ill. But these are outrageous. And it is an outrageous criminalization of political speech. They're trying to make it illegal to question the results of an election.
Вот это вот парни ЧВК «Вагнер», которые погибли сегодня.
In part 1, we featured this man, Yevgeny Prigozhin, leader of the Wagner group of mercenaries who turned on the Russian army, and there was speculation he might try to topple Putin.
Пиздец, это беспилотник.
Prigozhin made the peace with his boss in the Kremlin, but it came as no surprise to many observers that weeks later, a private plane with the mercenary leader as a passenger plunged out of the skies, killing all on board. When they heard the news, Russia watchers speculated Putin had ordered Prigozhin's assassination since so many Kremlin opponents had died in mysterious circumstances.
Не пойму, у фирмы нет.
2 towering figures on the American political scene left the world stage in 2023. Veteran Senator Dianne Feinstein, who notched up countless achievements during a 3-decade career, died aged 90 years old. And former US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger passed away aged 100. A key figure of American diplomacy in the post-World War II era, Kissinger was a rare figure who achieved many diplomatic successes, notably opening China to the West, but he'll also be remembered for his role in the secret bombing campaigns in Cambodia, which paved the way for the rise of the Khmer Rouge and the genocide which followed. October the 7th, 2023 marked one of the grimmest days in recent Middle East history. Hamas militants based in the Gaza Strip and backed by Iran filmed their murderous assault in scenes too distressing to be shown in full on television. In a massive intelligence failure by Israel's spy agencies, Hamas militants and other jihadi groups breached barriers surrounding Gaza and embarked on the worst massacre of Jewish men, women and children since the Second World War. They stormed a music festival being held close to the border, grabbing hostages. Some were taken away and shot. And they fired indiscriminately at the thousands of mainly young people who'd gathered to celebrate peace through music. 260 bodies were discovered in the area of the festival. Simultaneously, militants also invaded nearby towns and kibbutzes, shooting everything in sight. Over 1,300 mainly Jewish civilians were murdered and over 200 were abducted. Israel was at war. Retribution was swift. Much of Gaza reduced to rubble in Israeli airstrikes. The deaths and suffering of the ordinary Palestinian people of Gaza suddenly became the new normal. By December, Gaza's health authority, controlled by Hamas, claimed almost 20,000 Palestinians were known to have died or their bodies buried under rubble. Israeli forces had taken control of much of northern Gaza and had pushed into the south, with only a few days' pause in fighting. Some Israeli hostages were released, including women and the very young. And in a swap deal, the Israelis freed some West Bank Palestinians held in jail in Israel. But as the year drew to a close, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu pledged to fight on and destroy Hamas.
Hamas is ISIS, and just as ISIS was crushed, so too will Hamas be crushed. And Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
A record number of demonstrators and delegates attended the climate change summit in Dubai, known as COP28. UAE President Sheikh Mohammed Al Nahyan and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres received world leaders under pressure to step up efforts to limit global warming. The leaders of the two world's biggest polluters, the US and China, didn't attend. Britain's King Charles outlined his hopes.
I pray with all my heart that COP28 will be another critical turning point towards genuine transformational action at a time when already, as scientists have been warning for so long, we are seeing alarming tipping points being reached.
And I'm sure climate change stories will figure in our coverage in 2024. Well, that's it for our look back at 2023. Thank you for joining me. This is John Cookson for Arise News in London.